What's up, guys? It's your girl Samar. Let's get in the van, guys. We got a little road trip to take, guys. Listen, you know how we've been finding out that our forefathers have been in some interesting industries. We found out that Abraham's wells are actually oil wells. We find out that the men were doing weird stuff. You know what I mean? I just gotta call it what it is. Or at least it was described to us weirdly. Let me say it like that. You'll read the book and then you'll see something random like Absalom didn't have a son, so instead he built up a pillar, you know, or Jacob had a dream and there was a ladder and he placed a stone there, you know, like weird stuff like that. So, you know, I found myself running into something weird as it pertained to Abraham, right? Abraham, Abraham, it's one and the same person, right, y'all? I mean, we found out last week he is wholly involved in Islamic worship, okay? I've raised up mine hands. I can't help myself, y'all. It's just, if I don't laugh, I might cry because it's always been there. It's been right in the book that this man was raising up his hands to another deity. And now we know why. It sounded like the book was convoluted with a lot of lords and the lord of this and the god of that. And you know what I mean? There was a lot going on. And I told y'all Solomon couldn't possibly be worshiping our God. I told y'all that. It's no way possible. He's standing in a temple with all kinds of abominations in it. And you supposed to be praying to our God. Come on, guys. I'm so glad we woke up from these lies. We see forefather Abraham leading the pack with this. But I seen Abraham do something odd. You know, he planted a Tamarisk tree. Right, guys? And I said we were going to get into this week because it's a really strange story. Let me just tell y'all, man, these people were not perfect. Neither am I. I'm not here to say I'm perfect either. No. These people were involved in some crazy stuff. And I'm just going to put it out there. You know, the articles that I'm finding revolving around this Tamarisk tree. So in the background, I'll see a motel. Y'all are probably like, where are we going this weekend? Tomorrow. Stick it out. Stick it out, guys. Let's get into this first, right? Because I want to do some digging. Now, you know what? I think this might be better towards the end. Let's save that for later. Let's get into Genesis 21. Let me show y'all what brought us here. All right? So we know Isaac is born. So this is definitely after Abraham, because he is definitely being called Abraham, and we see Sarai is Sarah in here. Okay, we see that Sarai is Sarah. All right, they're gonna put princess. Other renditions have chief, and it's more lining with chief. Like you see that czar, right? Yeah, don't play. Their names are changed. So this is after Abraham has supposed to have had this covenant with whom his child is being blessed to him from. You know, that creator. That let me see. Sarah turns. No, that's not what we're trying to do. Sorry, y'all. For this to be the like I told y'all with the Strong's Concordance, I have to bring in the whole of the chapter. All right. It's important when we get to Genesis 21. The reason being, Abraham has this covenant with Abimelech. So I told you guys this is after he's had the covenant with whoever is blessing Sarah with Isaac. Okay, let's just say that. All right. It looks like he goes into another covenant. I mean, it looks very deceptive here. He's at Beersheba, which we covered this. The well of seven, the well of the oath, right? He's taking an oath here. He's passing on the ewe lambs, the 7 ewe lambs, which, remember, ewe lamb is linked to Rachel. Rachel is linked to the ewe lamb, okay? But after he leaves the ewe lambs as witnesses, let's go down to 31. Wherefore he called the place Beersheba, because there they swore, both of them. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech rose up, and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, and they returned into the land of Philistine. And Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba, and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned in Philistine lands many days. Sounds like he planted a grove. What is this stuff that he's doing here? All right. What is this grove? Eshel. It's a tamarisk tree. Remember, I told y'all some translations are going to say a tamarisk. All right. From an unused word. Arabic, Sabian, compare. Botanical identity. The eshel is widely identified with the tamarisk, a hardy, salt-tolerant tree that flourishes in arid regions. Its deep roots tap hidden water, while its feathery branches offer rare desert shade. Slow-growing, yet long-lived, the tamarisk becomes a natural monument, capable of standing for generations and silently witnessing the affairs of men. Didn't I tell you guys that the plants, anything in the botanical world, and we're bringing in some of the arbor world with the trees, right? Anything in that world has memory, all right? It possesses cellular memory. So I told you that everything that's gone on in the affairs of man over the course of these years, that the trees would bear witness. Didn't Tamar tell you that? Look what this is saying. They silently witness the affairs of men. Underneath the trees is a network of roots. Underneath. And they communicate. You better know it. And so I thought that was cool to bring that in. But let's go down to this tamarisk tree. All right, occurrences in Scripture. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he called on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. All right, now Saul was staying in Gibeah under the tamarisk tree on the hill. So y'all think these people just laying outside on a pile of dirt under this tree, right? Because this is the picture they want to paint for us. They want you to believe this is so long ago. I don't believe this was long ago. We're looking at probably 200-300 years ago. This was not this long ago. All right? Because remember, we did the photo. We got Crystal to tell us about Gisella's clothing. And that was in the 1800s, guys. Yeah, the picture going to tell us more than what they think it's going to tell us. That woman's wearing some clothing. What century is that style of clothes from? And what does she tell us? The 1800s, right? Okay, so late, and that's lining up with Stephen the First marrying Gisela. All right, and then you're going to see it in Samuel 1, 31 and 13. Then they took their bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree in Jabesh. And they fasted 7 days. Sound like some sort of ritual, right? Whose bones did they take? We're going to have to get into that story, guys. After covenanting with Abimelech over the well of Beersheba, Abraham plants a tamarisk and invokes the Lord, the everlasting God. The tree thus becomes a covenant marker, a living memorial to divine faithfulness, and to Abraham's sworn agreement over water rights in Negev. Telling y'all, I'm thinking this is going back to Oklahoma. That's where we got Tulsa at. That's where we got the wall, Black Wall Street's built. Right? They built a wall. A proclamation post. We're right down here. Right here. Abraham publicly called on the name of, you see, besides the tree, and a land dotted with adulterous groves. This tamarisk testifies the worship of the true God alone in rightfulness. No, it just added amongst the other adulterous trees. Okay? A symbol of permanence, linking the everlasting God to a tree renowned for endurance. Abraham declares confidence that the covenant promise will outlast his own lifetime. And he ain't lying. Listen, right here in my county of Cochise County, they have to send water to the Middle East. Not water, sorry. They have to send alfalfa to the Middle East. And these contracts have been here for a very long time, that the Saudi royal family is able to grow alfalfa right here in good old Arizona. And we got to send that back home to them. Okay? Why do you think that's happening? Because of these covenants right here. And that proves that this is the place, right? Because we're taking it from here and sending it over there. So that proves this is the place. Right? Never forget, they call America the breadbasket of the world. Okay? And you're just a slave here, making sure the world gets fed. You able to take a siesta? No, I don't think so. Do you have free health care? No. No, you don't. You are just a slave. Now, there's levels to that slave ship. You know, you might disagree with me, fellas, but I know who's at the bottom of that slave ship. Let's keep moving. All right. A shadow of impending judgment right here. The king who rejects the everlasting covenant stands beneath a tree that once symbolized fidelity, highlighting his tragic reversal. Yes, they're talking about Saul, probably. Witness to the king's fall. Yeah. When the valiant men of Jabesh Gilead retrieved the bodies of Saul and his son from Bethshan, they buried the remains under a tamarisk tree. So now we're finding out whose bones are under that tree. They're going to bring out the bones of their kings and their priests, right? The second tamarisk connected to Saul's function as a silent testament that the same shade once sheltering Saul's defiance now covers his disgrace. Israel must reckon with covenant violation, yet the 7-day fast anticipates repentance and renewal. Under who? The Davidic rule, right? This don't got shit to do with Israel. Israel and the Davidic kingdom shouldn't even be said in the same sentence. It has nothing to do with Israel. That's them people over there. That's David and them. Our wayward cousins. It's don't got nothing to do with Israel. So let's keep going. But everybody on the front line know that, don't y'all? Longevity. The tamarisk capacity to thrive where few plants survive mirrors the sustaining grace in barren places. They witnessed both Abraham's planting and Saul's burial. Show the tree marking decisive spiritual moments. Covenant initiation and covenant breach. The covenant had been breached. Matter of fact, hold up. Let's make this clear. They not in no covenant, okay? Not with Not in Israel's covenant, okay? They're in a covenant, all right, but not Israel's. Let me make that clear. Shade and refuge under the relentless desert sun. The Tamarisk demonstrates the comfort found, right? They're going to say in God alone. The tree grows slowly. Its presence urges each generation to look back at God's act, forward to his fulfilled promises. They say it memorializes the work, cares for the deserted, going to provide shade, right? Create an oasis for mercy for those in spiritual or physical deserts. I like that they use this word right here, right? Let's go down to typological reflections. I thought it said theological. Sorry, guys. The patriarchy plants a tree. Right here, the patriarch, they're going to put, right? I think this is what these things are memorializing. You know, they chose the oak as the strongest tree. They're choosing this one because it could tap into hidden water. Invoking the everlasting God. Later, the son of Abraham hangs on a tree, securing the everlasting. Oh, they going to call this JC hanging on the tree. All right, they just wanted to bring JC in it. We out of here. All right, so these are the three references to a tamarisk tree, right? And it starts with Abraham, right? Abraham, unfortunately, he's Abraham at this point, but he's not acting like Abraham because he's not respecting the covenant that he's actually in, is he? He's over there with them people, okay? Seems to keep happening to us, doesn't it? Let's get into this. Oh, we already hit that up. Hold on, let's go back. Yeah, we got to get to this article right here. Okay, this is what we all here for. The Hebrew word. Study food, let's close this, drink, and lodging. Hebrew word study, food, drink, and lodging. Ishul. Now that Ishul was reminding me of the name of one of the guys that's actually with Abraham. So I'm like, is this some code word? Like, just follow the article first, and then maybe you might ask yourself that when you see his name later on, right? He's in Genesis 14 with Abraham. He's one of the people told to let him eat. It's Eshel, Arn, and Mamre. Y'all remember Mamre from last week. All right, so let's go. Genesis 21 and 33. Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God, right? But we know that grove is the tamarisk tree, right? I was reading a passage in the Talmud this morning, right? We read in Genesis 21 that Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba. The word grove is Eshel, which is spelled Aleph, Shin, and Lamed, or Lamed. This actually means a tamarisk tree, which is a small, prickly type tree. It has no real value. It's basically a bush, right? So now we're finding out it's not really this big old tree, right? It's a thorny bush, right? Now remember, curved sana, right? What did it say? Encounter at the thorny bush. So whatever they've been doing at this thorny bush, right? So let's get to it. What is this thorny bush? Let's talk about it. All right, Bedouins, right here, use it to protect themselves from the wind, and the bark is used to fuel a fire, which gives off a lot of smoke. Bible scholars have pondered this verse for centuries. Why would Abraham plant bushes that are perfectly capable of growing wild and offer no value whatsoever than a windbreaker and a smoky fire? Okay, which you really don't want no smoky fire. That alerts other people of your presence over there, okay? Animals, all kinds of stuff. So it ain't even the best wood to burn, okay? It says that Abraham planted the tamarisk and called upon the name of the Lord, right? Scripture is being very specific here. What does the planting of a thorny bush have to do with worshiping God? Good goddamn question, right? Anybody with some sense is going to be asking, what is this, you know? In ancient cultures, archaeologists have found the tamarisk in Akkadian literature, where it was used for divination and for magical and medicinal purposes. It was used in the worship of the god Anunnaki, as the branches of the tamarisk were pictured as the bones of the god that the Anunnaki threw down to earth when they refused to work. Sound funny? Who's supposed to work and earn it by the sweat of his brow? Okay, let's keep going. You find the Akkadian word Qudus, holy, often associated with the tamarisk. For this, some scholars suggest that the planting of the tamarisk by Abraham was for the purpose of worshiping God. Pretty heady stuff. But I really hate the thought that Abraham would use a pagan symbol of worship to worship God, right? Even he recognizes, this author recognizes this as not really what you should be doing if you're worshiping the God of Israel, right? Some people are paying attention here, all right? Shoot, for a while I wasn't either. This stuff was going over my head, but we here with Mama now, and that's what makes the difference, ain't it? So let's keep going. It's a pagan symbol of worship. Then again, Abraham was the father of the nation that would introduce monotheism. So we really can't slight the old boy for resorting to an ancient pagan symbol to worship God. I mean, even the ram caught in the thorns just before Abraham attempted to sacrifice Isaac could very well have been a symbol of the gods of the land of Ur that influenced Abraham as a child. You see what I'm saying? I question what was going on there. The Creator would have never asked for that. So I don't really know what the hell was going on in that scenario right there, but we already know he's praying to Allah. So, that just was screaming to me, like, is this the encounter at that thorn bush? What went down there? We're going to have to dig into that a little bit more. And Mama ain't gave me that yet, guys. You know, so I have to be honest, Mama hasn't given me that one yet. I haven't dug either, but Mama hasn't given me that yet. You know, some things I'll sit there and it just comes, and some things, you know, we still waiting on it, and that's okay. Mama feeds us at the pace that we can absorb this stuff, man. You know, even I'm being fed with a baby spoon. You know what I mean? I might have like 2 or 3 teeth in my mouth as a toddler, so she feeds me a heavier portion than y'all. But I'm still being fed. You know, I only figured out that Abraham is praying to Allah about 2 hours before our episode, y'all, last week. I'm trying to tell y'all something. So, I mean, not last week, the week before. So, I'm just a step ahead of y'all. Let's keep going. But I can't wait till she give us that, and she will. All right, Abraham was the father of the nation that would introduce the monotheism. Let's go down here, the Talmud. Sorry, down underneath it. The Talmud does teach his father made a living in manufacturing idols. So they're saying that Abraham made a living manufacturing idols. Perhaps this was one of the ways of God purging all the idolatry out of Abraham. I think scripture would have been more explicit about it if this were the case. I mean, the least the writer could have done was add a few more lines to explain the reason for planting a tamarisk tree, so future generations wouldn't spend countless hours in debate over the reason for it. So I refuse to write Genesis 21:33 off. Thank you, mister, because we need to know, right? As just literary fluff. So God could get enough pages in his book to meet the minimum requirement. We read it, think, okay, Abraham planted a tamarisk tree, praise the Lord, and then we move on. No, I'm not moving on. I'm not stopping right here. And I will not leave until I have an answer. So this person is determined. I think it's a guy. I keep saying a guy. This person is determined to figure out this tamarisk tree, and I'm thankful they were, because I really like their angle here, okay? I really like their angle. So that is how I happened to find myself in the Talmud this morning, seeking some answers from those who spent a lifetime studying the Word of God. I found something interesting. Certain sages see the word for tamarisk as an acronym. This word right here. Now remember, I told you this name was looking a lot like the guy that was with him. And they're saying it's like an acronym. Yes, they have acronyms in Hebrew, and I see no reason why God would not use an acronym. The word is spelled Aleph, which is the first letter, right, which means food. Aquila, right here, they say it means food. Shin is the first letter for the word, which means satia, which means drink. And Lamid is the first letter for Luia, which means fellowship and or lodging. Now, why is that important? Because I personally think that, we open with that picture of the motel, right? Here you go. Yeah, we open with that picture of the motel. I think this word is covering more than just the motel, right? Because when you go to their secret societies, right? Well, a lot of us, I actually been in a Masonic temple, actually, and one in Brooklyn. Actually, I was invited by a friend who's a musician. So I've been in one of the lodges. What do they call it? They call it a lodge. Okay? They call it a lodge. The sages concluded that Abraham went into the motel business. I couldn't make this up, y'all. When I saw this, it hit like a ton of bricks, right? Because I'm like, when you go back and you think about him, and it sounds like showing hospitality to these three angels, feeding them, they're bathing, they're resting under the tree, right? I'm like, dude, whoa, that does sound like a motel or a hotel, right? They're saying Abraham went into the motel business and planted the tamarisk tree as a fence around his inn, serving as a billboard sign that within the grove was a hotel, an inn, or a hostel. There, travelers could come and find rest, food, and companionship. Companionship with who? We're going to get into that next week because I had another interesting article concerning some of the stuff that Abraham was up to, especially when it came to Sarah, okay? Dangling her beauty like a carrot on a stick, okay? And getting stuff. He's finessing people out of stuff for this. Cheap, oxen, it say, gold, silver, okay? He's acquiring land. This is off of Sarah's beauty, and Sarah's supposed to be damn near 100 years old. My grandmama must have been a looker. But there's a word for that, okay? And I question what was going on there too. But we can get into that next week. This week we talking about this hostel, okay? This what do they say, billboard sign that was in the grove as a hotel, an inn, or a hostel. And they could get companionship here. They can get rest, food, and companionship. What is that sounding like, y'all? This is reminding me, actually, of these booths that these men, okay, so maybe Abraham had what we would consider a hotel. And these booths that these men are making outside the camp. Remember, I told y'all, think of this as the Wild Wild West time, that era. These whorehouses, right? Are those booths? Will we call those more like motels? This is what Sakaf is linked to, okay? And it's a 7-day feast, right? Didn't they say here it's a 7-day fast? That sounds like it's linked to the same thing to me. Let's keep going. But this hostel really serves more like a coffee house with a religious theme where you can get companionship. Sure does. Wow, sounds just like a coffee house to me, guys. Good old Starbucks. The Talmud goes on to explain the words he called in Hebrew is right here, guys. Vakery, maybe? Which is really a hiftal imperfect third person form and should be rendered. He caused others to call upon the name. Oh, see, I've lifted up mine hands All right. So Abraham got other people lifting up their hands, the Abrahamic religion, right? Right? He got them lifting up their hands. And your dumb ass calling right on him. Every time you say that and you call on the Most High God, this is what you're doing too. Right here. You're causing others to call on that name. In other words, Abraham caused God's name to be spoken in the mouth of all his guests. Sound like it could be a church too. The Talmud says, roughly translated, after they ate and drank, they blessed him. And Abraham said, have you eaten my food and drank my drink? No, your food and drink were provided by the Creator. Not the Creator. By, I guess, Allah. They're plugging in Jehovah, but we proved he's praying to Allah. Thank and bless him who spoke the world into being. Lion. So the guy says, frankly, I like that explanation better than the idea he just set up a place to worship God using pagan symbols. No, that's exactly what he did. I'm sorry to tell you. I know sometimes we don't want to believe the truth when it's hitting us right in the face, but that's actually what Abraham did, sir. He set up, I like to think that he set up a place to worship God by sharing the love of God. He set up a mission station where he was our first missionary. It says we are all called to share the message and the love and salvation. No, it's very easy to get one-dimensional and focus on our own worship needs, problems. But when Abraham, the father of not only Judaism, right, the Abrahamic religions, but Christianity, right? Oh, they're not going to give Islam a shout out. Looked like Islam was first, okay, and these other things were split off. So, yeah, this is what Abraham was doing. You know, I pulled in that Sakat because, like I told you, I feel like it's very, very relevant. This is where the men of Israel, right, supposedly first camped out of Egypt, right? And this is this covering, right? A hedge to hide behind. What were they hiding and doing? What were they doing? Well, I told y'all what they were doing. Look at this. For the meaning of the name Sakath, both Jones Dictionary of Old Testament proper names and the NOBSE Study Bible Name List reads booths. And although that is correct, it should be noted the building of shelter for cattle pretty much marked the beginning of agricultural revolution, thus of modern humanity. Modern humanity, in turn, exists because of man's amazing ability to combine different strands of wisdom, how to grow corn, how to make bronze, how to write, into one sizzling, unified culture. That, too, sits in this name. No, you know what sits into this name? Funny that they would use this word cattle, right? Because I heard a guy say that when you think of the word domestic, you know, when I look back to some of the census, back in the days, the women would write that they wouldn't write the head of the household because the man was the head of the household. They would write that they were the domestic provider, you know, and I heard a guy say they only ever used that word with animals. Like, as a woman, how do you let them say this to you? And when I thought about it, I was like, wow, that is really profound. I don't know how the hell I ain't think of that. But I was thankful that he did. Because it really set off, you know, a bell went off in my head. Like, oh, snap. All this time, you know, we've been domesticated. So, you know, I tend to think these people speak in code. I tend to think these booths were these new, not just the whorehouses, but, you know, those are the booths outside of the camp. But once they began to make homes the way we did here, I told y'all prior to them coming in here, our culture was egalitarian. We had a cohesiveness. You know, women were looked up to as with more respect, definitely with more respect, and we were looked up to for our knowledge. Somehow we knew then, right? It's hard to get people to swallow this pill now, but then we knew about the woman's connection to mama, and you valued that. You know? Now we got this different society, right? The agricultural revolution. Man is doing this, right? Man's amazing ability. Yeah, man did this. And I tend to think these booths are linked to this booth. But remember I told you that that guy is in here. Here we go. You see his name, this Ishul right here? He's still giving me the vibe of that other word for the acronym that they're talking about, right? So, just something I was digging on personally. You know, I haven't been able to 100% make the link there. Now, this article right here points out a discrepancy, um, which just shows you that, you know, these men were messing around with this book. Okay, and if you don't pay close attention, it'll go over your head. Like, there's a discrepancy when it comes down to the tale of Joshua having left in Egypt versus Moses having left Egypt, that one day we'll cover. But this article is covering that specific story concerning when the episode at Baal Peor. All right, but it's told from two different angles. It says, when Balaam raised his eyes and saw Israel dwelling according to its tribe, and the Spirit of God rested upon him. Did God confirm through Balaam that Sukkot were good tents? How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. So Balaam refers to them as tents. Right? Shouldn't Israelites be in the booths based on Leviticus? Because when they came out of Egypt right here, you know, the verse is going to say something different. When God speaks through Moses, we're right here, instead of Balaam. So this is the conflict. What's said when it's said through Balaam and what's said when it's said through Moses, all right? We learned the Israelites lived in booths instead of tents, right? For a 7-day period, you shall live in booths. Remember, I told y'all this is the same feast that they honor it, right? Because it's the 7 days. Every resident among the Israelites shall live in booths, in order that future generations may know I made the Israelite people live in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. Were Israelite Sukkot booths simply olam tents? Balaam's view of the children of Israel encamped by tribe, each tribe around its banner, stands at odds with an observance of the Sukkot festival. Balaam lifted up his eyes and saw his Israel abiding in his tents according to their tribes. The Feast of Tabernacles was not a time when the people would dwell in tents. They were supposed to make shelters for themselves of natural material. Speak to the children of Israel, saying, the 15th of the 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days. On the first day shall be a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. On the 8th day shall be a holy convocation unto you, and ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a solemn assembly, and you shall do servile work therein. No servile, sorry. Look, and ye shall take you on the first day the boughs of goodly trees, branches of palm trees, the boughs of thick trees, the willows of brooks. See, we're going right back into the wood, right? The guys, see what I'm saying here? last week we talked about the oak. This week we talking about the tamarisk tree, and now we're going to bring in that the Creator is indeed talking about buildings. Okay, this is allegory for buildings, or just material, right? And ye shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. This is materials right here that they're just being. This is just code word for that. And forgive me, did I just say the Creator? Because I don't know that the Creator's created is attached to this right here. I do not believe so when it comes to Moses and whoever Moses is worshiping. But what I brought this in for is to show you guys this code word for these trees and buildings. It's all going hand in hand. All right, and there's that feast. You shall dwell in booths. See, 7 days. I wondered if these are like motels. The passage indicates the children of Israel dealt in booths made of boughs from trees. They did not dwell in tents during this week. Therefore, Balaam could not have observed them during the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay, somebody lying, basically, is what this article is, in fact, telling us. So, that article should not be in there, but it is. And I would pretty much rather cover that article next week. Because like I told y'all, I personally don't care for whatever's going down in Genesis where Sarah is being dangled like a carrot on a stick. Is she complicit, or is she under his rulership at a certain point? I personally don't like the way Sarah died, and nobody don't talk about how she died. I find it odd. She's such a pivotal character in this book, and we don't really have a full understanding of how she died even. So, sometimes the book leaves me with more questions than answers too, guys. That's all I can say on the matter. But I hope y'all enjoyed this ride this week that we took down this path of these trees and what is going on, what this dude is planting, what this allegory is telling us. I want y'all to think of this in a much more modern manner. I told y'all, don't be thinking these people out here on dirt piles pitching tents with donkeys, okay, and they don't even have the wheel, okay. Please don't think like that. No, y'all would have thought they had the wheel because they do mention chariots, but in my personal opinion, these chariots are probably cars. I'm trying to tell y'all something. I just don't, dude, I don't even believe this book is even that long ago written. Okay, so just gotta be honest with y'all. All right, so, well, thank y'all for tuning in. Shout out to everybody on the front line. Much love to you guys. We'll get into what this dangling of Sarah is looking like to me next week. Much love to you guys. I'll see you guys later. Take care.